Okay, cool. Looks like everything's set up. All right, looks nice, right? So, what do you need me to stand? Is there any place particular need me to stand? I don't, you know. You always got me in different places. What's this? Whoa! Ah! Of Horror Vein, where we talk about everything horror. I'm your host, Robert J. Massetti, and this week we got another comic book spotlight where we're going to be talking about the comic book Evil Ernie from Chaos Comics. Ooh. And we're also going to give you the chronological reading order in case you're a collector or wanting to read the books. It'll help you out when you're trying to figure out where am I supposed to be in this storyline, which can happen sometimes when you're trying to read older comic books. What? So we're here to help, so stay tuned. So this week in horror comic book news, this Wednesday, November 23rd, is when releases will come out, and the new release of the October faction, Deadly Season number 2, comes out on Wednesday, November 23rd. This is the first issue. If you're not reading this comic book, start reading it. Yeah. Very good comic book written by Steve Hughes from 30 Days a Night and artwork by Damian Worm. Really good horror comic book if you like vampires and monsters and all kinds of creepy stuff. Ooh. Check it out. Deadly Season from the October faction out this Wednesday, November 23rd. Check it out. So this week on Horror Vein, we were talking about horror comics and one of my favorite horror comics, Evil Ernie from Chaos Comics. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the story progression and the comic book order that you read this comic. But if you're not reading this comic, you need to. Evil Ernie from Chaos Comics is a great horror comic. Got great artwork from Steven Hughes, and great writing. And it's just you need to check out this book if you're any kind of horror comic book fan. So the one thing you need to understand if you're going to read anything from Chaos Comics is that they don't when they do a storyline, they go for 3 or 5 issues, and then they'll go back to number 1 and start a new storyline. Hey! So they've been doing that since the beginning. And they still do that now because Chaos Comics is now Coffin Comics. So they instead of doing a monthly where the numbers just keep going to 2, 3, 4, 500, they'll go through a storyline no matter how long it takes, and then when the storyline ends, they go back to number 1. Evil Ernie was with Eternity Comics. That was the first 5 issues of the storyline that came out. It's a black and white comic, no color. It's still really good, but they're hard to find. And they're very expensive if you're going to collect them or try to read them. Then it goes into Chaos Comics. Now, this is when they first started. Whoa! This is number 1, and it's the Resurrection. So it's Evil Ernie Resurrection. That's the second part, which actually is the first part of Chaos Comics. So it goes from there. And then from Resurrection, the storyline goes to Revenge. And then the next one goes to Straight to Hell, which is a really, really cool comic book because it has this pull-out coffin on the cover of Evil Ernie. How cool is that? What other comic book company is doing something like this? This is really cool. This is why I love Chaos Comics. And then from there, they go to Destroyer. And then from Destroyer, they started doing a monthly. Now, they've done that a couple times where they'll go to a monthly for a little while, but this was the monthly that went for 10 issues, and then they stopped doing it. Yeah. So it went to a monthly. There's 10 issues in that, and then they decided to go into another storyline, which is Depraved. 3 issues on that. And then after Depraved, it went to War of the Dead, and that War of the Dead is the last story, the Evil Ernie saga. It's the last one. It's the last Evil Ernie. The other Evil Ernies that are out right now with Dynamite Comics have nothing to do with anything that's going on in Chaos Comics. So just so you know. And then after that, Brian released a Evil Ernie Pieces of Me, which gives an origin story of Evil Ernie and all the things that happened at the beginning. So it kind of ties everything together with all the storylines. So it's a really good book. If you want to read Chaos Comics, you want to read Evil Ernie, that's the story progression. So check it out. Evil Ernie, one of my favorite comic books. So that's it for this week's Horror Vein. I hope you enjoyed this horror comic special on Evil Ernie. Yeah. We're going to be doing more comic specials in the future. So we hope you tune in. Hope you enjoy yourself. Thank you for watching. Tell your friends to, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like what you're watching. Tell your friends. Help us out. That's Horror Vein. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next week. We love ya.